Schilling was followed by all-time home run leader Barry Bonds and 354 game winner Roger Clemens in the voting. Important note I want to make, there is a morals character clause in the current Hall of Fame voting. The commissioner at the time was Kennesaw Landis, the first MLB commissioner who made sure African Americans could not play Major League Baseball. So much for morality and character with that clause. MLB insider Jeff Passan joining us now. Jeff, great to have you with us, and I understand that you have a very strong position on the Hall of Fame. So I want to hear from you first. Is it a big deal to even get into the Hall of Fame at this point?
I think the fact, Molly, that the Hall of Fame was dominating trending topics on Twitter last night illustrates that it is still a big deal to people. And yet my personal position as someone who has voted in the Hall of Fame and who gave up his Hall of Fame vote because he thought that the entire process had been completely corrupted is that the Hall of Fame is a museum. The Hall of Fame exists to tell the history of baseball. And the history of baseball has all kinds of unsavory characters. It has warts, it has low moments, it has high moments. And the idea that Barry Bonds, arguably the greatest hitter since Babe Ruth, that Roger Clemens, one of the great pitchers of all time, and even Curt Schilling, who statistically is probably a borderline guy, but for me would have been in based on his on-field play alone. The fact that they're not going to be in there is whitewashing the history of baseball. And I hate that idea that people, that fans, that those who go to Cooperstown, New York aren't mature enough to walk into this building that is so full of sanctimony and say, this isn't some special miraculous place that got dropped by the baseball gods onto this little burg in New York. This is a museum, and museums are meant to tell us what have happened in the past, and what has happened in the past is ugly and is dirty and is complicated.
Go ahead, Max. The Hall of Fame's a very big deal. The Hall of Fame's a very big deal, as Jeff points out, whether you like it or not. It's a huge deal to get into the Hall of Fame. And let me just say this. The voting should be uncomplicated. In fact, just put me in charge. I have this whole thing figured out. It's really very simple. For those who would say anyone who's ever cheated is disqualified, that's ridiculous. Gaylord Perry, the spitter in me, right? Like, stop it. You guys threw spitballs and admitted it their whole career. They're in the Hall of Fame. Everyone, shut up about that. It's very, very simple. It's not that cheating disqualifies you. It's that if you cheated and it changed you, it can be demonstrated it changed you from something you weren't into something you became, and what that was a Hall of Famer, then you're not in the Hall of Fame. But if you were already a Hall of Famer when you cheated, then you are in the Hall of Fame. So Barry, like Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa, should never get a whiff of the Hall of Fame, because without cheating, they would have never gotten close. Now, Barry Bonds, when he started in, was a first ballot Hall of Famer and a top 3 or 4 left fielder who ever lived. He's in the Hall of Fame. It's a no-brainer. Roger Clemens was a borderline Hall of Famer when all of a sudden he went to Toronto when he seemed to be declining and then won the pitching Triple Crown 2 years in a row and everything. But I think, so you want to say no to Roger Clemens? I think it's silly. I think Roger Clemens is also a Hall of Famer because he pitched quite a bit longer after that. At whatever level, he wasn't done with his career when he was already borderline. And Curt Schilling, if this is complicated for people, I don't know why. Whatever you think about his politics or irresponsible things he said or whatever, Curt Schilling was a runner-up Cy Young Award 3 times and a top 5 finisher another time. He struck out more than 300 guys 3 times. He was one of the best strikeout-to-walk ratios in his prime of all time. He won 20 games in an era where it was still not that easy to do multiple times. And not only that, if you think he was borderline, which he was, minus the postseason, then to ignore the most highly leveraged games there are is silly, and he's one of the greatest pressure pitchers who ever lived. In a long postseason career where he had 13 decisions, went 11-2 with a sub-1 whip and almost a sub-2 ERA, barely over 2 ERA, he did that in the teeth of the steroids era. Teams he pitched for, largely because he pitched for them, won the World Series, more than one different franchise. Curt Schilling is obviously a Hall of Famer. So is Barry Bonds. And by the way, so is Roger Clemens. This ain't that hard.
It's not that hard. And let me tell you something else, too. Let me be very, very direct and clear. I don't like Curt Schilling a little bit. I don't like him at all. You look at some of the things that he says, the way that he acts, the people that he has said things about, including myself and others. My God, let me tell you something right now. The only thing that has stopped me from going after him is the fact that I work for the worldwide leader. Because ain't nobody scared of his sorry behind as a person. I don't like him a little bit. But I'm man enough to acknowledge this man is a Hall of Famer. There is no excuse. And Max, you threw out all the number. 300 strikeout seasons. The strikeout to walk ratio is top notch. I mean, this dude is like 5-0 all time in clutch situations in big time games. He's undefeated. You consider the way that he has performed. This Hall of Fame process is an absolute positive joke. And as classless as he can be, I'm certainly not going to reciprocate by exuding the same or displaying the same kind of classlessness that he has. Nothing that he does off the field should take away from what he has done on the field. What he has done on the field is Hall of Fame quality. He should be in the Hall of Fame. It's an absolute joke that he is not in the Hall of Fame. And what Molly pointed out at the very beginning with Judge Landis, the first commissioner of baseball, who played a significant role in keeping blacks from participating in the sport. How in the hell do you have a morals clause in the Baseball Hall of Fame when the very start the starting process of all of this omitted blacks? How do you do that and then sit on a moral high ground and hold on to that for over a century now, for crying out loud? It is utterly ridiculous. It's hypocritical, and I want to applaud Jeff Passan for giving up his Hall of Fame vote.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.